Billionaire's shocking accusation exposed, but his daughter's touching truth transforms everything. The diner hummed with the symphony of clinking dishes and laughter, where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the unfulfilled dreams of the weary. Sarah Thompson navigated through the sea of tables, her smile warm despite the weight on her shoulders. At 28, she was the backbone of her family, a devoted waitress and a guardian to her younger brother, Kevin, whose laughter masked a struggle against a relentless medical condition. It was a typical bustling evening when she served rich patrons at an upscale event, her heart proud yet heavy. But that pride shattered when Douglas Harrington, local billionaire and cold capitalist, stood accusing her of stealing from his family. "I know she took them," he thundered, his piercing eyes scanning her every move. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her heart raced, burns of disbelief flooding her chest. A devoted waitress? A thief? The thought clutched at her gut. The next day, the town was electrified, their tensions splitting down the middle. Regulars at the diner, who used to share laughs and stories with Sarah, suddenly eyed her with skepticism. Could she really? They whispered. She always seemed so honest, but the seed of doubt had been planted, and people shifted between sides, defending their own interests and biases. The air felt thick with betrayal, and Sarah couldn't shake the heavy cloak of isolation it brought. In flashbacks, she envisioned her childhood. Her parents' selfless sacrifices echoed in her thoughts, long nights working 2 jobs to keep food on the table, and their unwavering belief that honesty would always prevail. With every memory, the tightness in her chest eased, even as anger grew at how unjustly she was being treated. Meanwhile, Emily Harrington, Douglas's daughter, felt a misfit in her lavish world. A bright college student yearning for something authentic, she found herself restless under her father's shadow. Overhearing the whispers about Sarah, empathy sparked within her. "This isn't right," she murmured, drifting away from her bustling world of privilege. Her internal battle was just beginning. Family loyalty or truth? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Emily and Sarah's paths inevitably converged, unexpected alliances formed. They dug deeper into the mystery, uncovering hidden documents that revealed how Douglas's empire preyed on the vulnerable. Each new discovery stoked their fires, pushing them toward confrontation. Then, the town called for a public meeting. Emotions ran high. As Sarah prepared her defense, burdens felt lighter. The weight of her family's sacrifices pulled behind her. Hope began to sprout. Was she ready to confront Douglas's disapproving glare? Would the community finally wake up from the haze of privilege? The moment loomed, and doubts clawed at her heart. She could almost hear her younger brother's laughter, cutting through her fears. Standing on that stage, she felt the world shift. Would she let the powerful smother her spirit, or would she unleash the truth? As she opened her mouth to speak, silence enveloped the crowd. The air crackled with anticipation, and all eyes turned to her, waiting for revolutionary words that could change everything. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart pounding fiercely in her chest. The faces in the crowd blurred, their whispers fading into an echo. It was just her and that stage, the wooden floor beneath her feet grounding her with its familiarity. The memories of her family's struggle pushed her forward, reminding her that now was the time to reclaim her story. "I stand before you not as a thief but as a woman fighting for my family's name," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor of her hands. Eyes widened, and she could hear the soft murmurs weaving through the crowd. "I've worked hard to build a life for my brother and me. It's hard enough to keep the lights on without enduring accusations that threaten our very existence." Douglas stood, arms crossed, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. But this wasn't about him. It was about the truth that needed to flood the room before more damage was done. "Mr. Harrington has cast shadows over my honesty," she continued, her voice rising. And in this town where we believe in family, friendship, and respect, I ask you, what does it say about us if we stand by while an innocent woman is tarnished by lies?" The crowd shifted, faces changing from skepticism to concern. Sarah saw nods of agreement, fuel to her fiery determination. Emily watched from the back, her heart racing at the sheer bravery radiating from Sarah. She could feel the churning of her own emotions: admiration, guilt, and something else brewing beneath the surface. What would her father think if she voiced her own thoughts on the matter? "I found documents," Sarah confessed, glancing around as if searching for the right words, "documents that show how Mr. Harrington's company has not only thrived but has thrived on the backs of others. The same people you see every day at this diner, the teachers, the service workers, the families you know by name. Instead of criminalizing me, let us look at the real thieves stealing our dreams." Gasps echoed again, but this time, they were filled with recognition and realization. Emily felt a surge of anger as she thought about her father's enterprise, the way he treated those with less power. Just behind her veneer of wealth was the raw truth of exploitation. The crowd began to murmur louder, exchanging glances. What if Sarah was speaking more than just her truth? What if she was shaking the very foundation of their community? "I refuse to be branded a thief," Sarah asserted, her voice now unwavering. "I won't lay down and let fear paralyze me. We all deserve better than this. Let us come together to change our story." A spark ignited in the audience. Applause started softly, hesitantly, then grew into a powerful chorus echoing through the hall. Sarah's heart surged, hope igniting. These were her people, and they could see the truth. But as the applause roared, a shadow fell over the moment. Douglas stepped forward, a scowl etched on his face. "What you've all heard today is a fabrication born from desperation," the crowd quieted, uncertainty surfacing again. Emily felt the tug of loyalty to her father, yet deep inside, her heart leaned towards Sarah's courage. She could feel the decision looming, the weight of her family's legacy against the truth she knew was right. As Douglas continued to speak, Sarah's heart raced again, but this time, it combined with a fierce hope. Emily glanced around before her mind made a choice, one that could alter everything. "Stop!" Emily yelled, cutting through the tension hanging thick in the room. All heads turned. "My father is wrong. I won't stand by and allow this injustice any longer." All eyes turned to her, and an electric silence filled the space. Would Emily's revelation be the final piece to unravel the tangled web of lies? The movement in the room felt electric, as though a storm was brewing. Emily's heart raced, each beat drumming out a rhythm of determination. The crowd stared, eyes wide with anticipation, as if they were witnesses to something monumental. "Emily?" Her father's voice cut through the silence like a knife, thick with disbelief and anger. She could see the shock surfacing in his eyes. A tide of loyalty crashed against her conviction, threatening to pull her back from the precipice she had just surged forward onto. "I can't stand by while you ruin an innocent woman's life," she declared, her voice steadying with every word. "I've seen the way you treat people like they're disposable. You take and take without regard for the damage done." Gasps were heard throughout the hall, and Douglas's expression twisted as if he had been struck. "How dare you speak to me like that?" he spat, anger oozing from every syllable. "You will regret this." But Emily stood strong, heart pounding, a mixture of fear and exhilaration coursing through her veins. "Regret is allowing you to keep doing what you're doing, tarnishing lives for your own gain. I can't be a part of that anymore." She took a breath and stepped away from the safety of family loyalty. As the crowd processed her words, Sarah's eyes glimmered with something unexpected: gratitude? Understanding? Emily was fighting for her, and in that moment, their stories merged in a way they had never imagined. A flicker of solidarity sparked between them. The tension in the room shifted. People began whispering, murmurs swelling to a crescendo as heads turned from Douglas to Emily and back to Sarah. Hope blossomed where fear had ruled moments before. "Do you hear that?" Sarah asked the crowd, her voice rising above the whispers. "That is the sound of change. We are not alone. We have the power to fight for our community and each other." A cheer erupted from the crowd, and the applause returned with a renewed fervor. There was something stirring in the hearts of the people. They were leaning toward a different kind of future, one where their voices mattered. As the applause reached a peak, Douglas grit his teeth, desperation creeping into his eyes. "You're making a grave mistake, Emily. You think this is about justice? It's about chaos. You'll see no good comes from siding with her." "But you're wrong, Dad," Emily shot back, her voice unwavering. "This is about truth, about standing up for what is right. You've built your empire on the backs of good people, and I won't support that anymore. I want to be proud of my family name." Tears of anger and betrayal glimmered in Douglas's eyes. The crowd was no longer just passive onlookers. They were rising up, fueled by a newfound sense of unity. As Sarah turned towards the crowd, her expression transformed from fear to fierce determination. "Together, we can hold the powerful accountable. Together, we can rewrite the narrative they've forced upon us." The hall erupted in applause, but the air felt thick with possibility. Emily could almost smell the shift, a collective breath being held. Suddenly, a figure stepped forward from the back of the room, an unfamiliar man with a confident swagger. "Let us not forget," he said, his voice loud enough for all to hear. "What happens next is vital. I come with information that could change everything." Emily's heart dropped. Who was he? What did he know? And how could his information shake the very core of what they had just begun to stand for? The crowd shifted with unease as they all awaited the next revelation, uncertain of what new storm was approaching. The hall held its breath. All eyes were riveted on the man, who appeared to revel in the attention, a slight smirk on his lips. Emily felt a chill creep down her spine. She could sense the crowd's anxious energy pulsing around her, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension binding them together. "Who are you?" a voice called out from the back. It was a familiar face, a neighbor whose children had played with Emily when they were younger. The question hung in the air like a weighted blanket, and Emily felt the collective tension rising. "I'm James," he said, exuding an air of self-assuredness. "And I've come to shine a light on something that's been hiding in the shadows." He stepped into a shaft of light, allowing the audience to take in his confident stance. "You see, Douglas isn't just a businessman. He's been exploiting more than just resources. He's been funneling money out of this community, out of your pockets, and into secret accounts." Gasps rippled through the audience, and Emily's stomach twisted in knots. Was this possible? There it was again, the darkness lurking behind the facade her father had so meticulously crafted. The man stepped closer to the front, drawing them in like moths to a flame. "I have evidence," James continued, pulling out a thick manila envelope, its corners dog-eared from use. The room erupted in chatter as eyes narrowed with suspicion and intrigue. "Contracts, letters, all documented. It's time to hold him accountable," he said, looking directly at Douglas. Emily could feel her father's rage simmering, and she braced herself for the inevitable confrontation. Douglas was a master manipulator. He wouldn't take this lying down. "Lies!" he shouted, his voice booming off the walls. "The only reason this man stands here is to stir discontent. You think you can toy with my reputation? You'll regret it, all of you." Emily's heart raced. They had reached a critical point. "No, Dad," she said, her voice rising above the chaos. "This isn't about you anymore. This is about Sarah and everyone else you've hurt. It's about truth and justice." The crowd began to chant truth, justice. As they rallied together, their voices intertwining into a chorus of resistance against the man who had controlled them for so long. The energy in the room shifted once more, electrifying and alive. James looked impressed. "You see this? You're not just a group of individuals. You're a community. And a community can change the world." Douglas's anger twisted into something darker, a grimace of defeat hidden beneath his surface bravado. "You think you've won something here? You're just feeding chaos. What you don't see is that standing against me means standing against everything you've ever known." Emily felt the chains of her upbringing begin to fall away. "No, standing with you means standing against ourselves, our values. We can't let fear dictate our choices any longer. The room started to buzz with excitement, a palpable sense of hope hovering in the air like smoke. People turned to one another, some even reaching out to shake hands or offer words of solidarity. In that moment, Emily sensed the tide turning, a movement being birthed from the ashes of her father's empire. But just as the momentum soared, James raised his hand again, silencing the crowd. "There's something else, something I haven't revealed yet. A link to your father that connects him to this whole web of lies. And it involves someone you all know intimately." Emily's stomach dropped. What could it be? Who were they about to implicate in this shocking revelation? The crowd leaned in, breaths held and hearts racing, as whispers danced through the air. The anticipation was suffocating. What kind of secrets had been hidden? And how far-reaching was her father's deceit? "Stay with me," James urged, "because what I'm about to reveal will change everything." A heavy silence fell across the hall, thick enough to cut through. Emily's heart hammered in her chest, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She glanced at Douglas, his face a storm of denial and defiance, but beneath the bravado, there was something else, a flicker of fear. "James, please." Emily's voice trembled slightly, barely louder than a whisper. She was aware of her own history with the man who had once been her hero. How had she not seen this darker side before? James cleared his throat, steeling himself. "I need you all to brace yourselves for what I'm about to say. It's not just Douglas who has been hiding the truth. The connections run deeper." He paused, letting the tension build, and glanced at the anxious faces around him. "Emily," he said, locking eyes with her, "I wish I didn't have to bring you into this. But the evidence ties directly to your mother, and the decisions she made before she passed." Emily's breath caught in her throat. Memories she had buried rushed to the surface, her mother's laughter ringing in her ears, their house filled with warmth and comfort. But beneath those cherished memories lay shadows of past choices and secrets, ones that had shaped Emily into the person she was today. "What do you mean?" she managed to ask, her voice shaking. James continued, "Your mother was not just a loving parent, she was involved in your father's dealings. She was aware of where the money was going. There are documents that show she helped orchestrate these transactions. She believed in your father's vision, but that vision came at a price." A chorus of murmurs erupted in the hall, filled with shock and confusion. Emily's entire world felt as if it were unraveling. How could her mother have been involved? How could she have stood by his side, knowing what Douglas was capable of? "James, you don't understand," she protested. "My mom would never." "Emily," he cut in gently. "I know this is hard to hear, but the truth is often messy. You loved her. We all did. But sometimes love blinds us to the reality of who we're standing beside." With each word, Emily felt a piece of her childhood slip away, leaving an ache that resonated deep within her. "You don't understand how much she meant to me. How could she betray the community like that?" Douglas seized the opportunity amid the chaos. "This is slander," he shouted. "You want to destroy my family name while dragging her memory through the mud? You're twisting this, James." "No," James replied firmly. "It's not about destroying. It's about understanding. It's time for accountability." The crowd began to shift uneasily, their solidarity now wavering in the wake of Emily's crisis. She couldn't process the weight of the accusations or the shattering of her idyllic memories. The faces around her wavered like shadows, tinged with uncertainty. "Emily!" a voice called out. It was Sarah, her childhood friend, who stepped forward, her face softening. "You can't shoulder this alone. Whatever your mom's decisions were, that doesn't define you. You're not your father, and you're not the past." Tears trickled down Emily's cheeks, the release of pent-up emotions bursting forth in front of the crowd. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she whispered, her voice breaking. As she looked at the faces of the community, a thought began to form. Could truth, no matter how painful, still pave the way for healing? Could acknowledging her mother's mistakes forge a stronger bond instead of a fracture? "Help us find the truth," she said, her voice rising, carrying strength that surprised even herself. "Not just about my father, but for all of us. We deserve to know." The crowd began to pulse with renewed energy, heads nodding, resolve building. James looked at her with a glint of admiration, as if she were slowly stepping into her own light. "Then let us uncover it together," he replied, his voice steady. But just then, a loud crash echoed from somewhere beyond the hall, causing everyone to startle. Emily's heart dropped again. What now? What further chaos lay ahead? "Stay with me," James said again, his voice firm but uncertain. "Because this journey has only just begun." The crowd jumped at the sound, a collective gasp rippling through the room. Emily felt as if the ground beneath her was shifting, pulling her away from the steady footing she had just begun to find. The tension was thick, and she could see the fear mirrored in the faces around her. "What was that?" someone shouted from the back, their voice laced with panic. It was as if the hall itself trembled with uncertainty. James turned towards the door, his brows knitted in concentration. "We need to check it out," he said, his tone all business, cutting through the chaos with the authority he usually reserved for when things spiraled beyond control. Douglas appeared paralyzed, eyes darting as if he understood that whatever lay outside this hall could bring destruction to the fragile piece they had just started to build. "It's probably just a stack of chairs falling or something," he waved dismissively, trying to regain control. "Let us stay focused on what we need to discuss." But Emily felt a pulse of urgency churn in her gut. "No," she insisted, backing James' request. "We can't ignore it. We have to know what is happening. Whatever it is, it might change everything." It was as though a spark was lit among the crowd. A few people nodded, and soon a new wave of determination swept through them. "Let us see," someone called out, and James moved toward the door, gesturing for Emily to follow. They pushed open the heavy door, and a cool gust of air rushed in, sending chills down Emily's spine. She stepped outside, heart racing, only to find a broken crate strewn across the ground and some boxes toppled over. But that wasn't all. A figure was hunched beside the fallen items, frantically picking through them. "Leo?" James called, his voice echoing in the stillness outside. The figure looked up with wide eyes, recognizable as Leo, a young man known for working odd jobs around the community. "Help!" Leo shouted, breathless and frantic. "I'm sorry! I was just trying to bring this stuff inside before the storm hit." Emily's face tightened as he struggled to catch his breath. "What did you find?" she asked, her instincts firing. "It was all mixed up together," Leo gasped, but Emily noticed the guilty look on his face. "I thought there might be something important in here about your father." On hearing this, Douglas emerged from the shadows, the disbelief morphing into something darker. "You shouldn't be rummaging through things that don't belong to you," he snapped, but the emotion in his voice betrayed his anger. "Wait," Emily said, taking a step forward. "If there's information about my father or my mother in there, we need to look. This is about the truth. All of it. Can we trust him?" Douglas barked, crossing his arms tightly as if bracing for an attack. James placed a hand on Emily's shoulder, grounding her. "It's not about trust," he said softly. "It's about looking ahead together. We can't be against each other right now." Emily's heart soared as she turned back to Leo, who was starting to pull items from the crate. Among the rubble, she spotted a manila folder, partially torn but distinctly marked with her father's name. The sight sent a shiver racing down her spine. What's in there?" she stammered, hardly believing what she was seeing. Leo looked up, a mix of hope and fear etched across his face. "I don't know. I just started to bring them to investigate. But from the little I saw it could explain everything." As he handed the folder to Emily, the eyes of the crowd grew wider, pressing in closer. The anticipation was palpable. What would this discovery reveal? The weight of many lives hung in the balance, including Emily's own. "Open it," someone murmured, the words echoing like a spell cast across the group. Emily felt her hands shake as she held it, the moment stretching into eternity. She drew a shaky breath, heart pounding. Would this folder contain the answers to the questions burrowing deep inside her? Before she could pull the papers from the folder, Another loud noise rang out from inside the hall, a sharp scream that sent ice through her veins. "Stay with me," James whispered again, this time with urgency. And just like that, every ounce of hope and determination wavered. What fresh chaos awaited them next? Emily's heart raced as the scream danced on the air, its echoes twisting into her thoughts with a sinister grip. She felt the folder go cold in her hands, its promise of answers slipping away amid the chaos swelling around her. The urgency in James's voice barely registered as adrenaline rushed through her, drowning out everything else. "What was that?" someone gasped, fear flooding the crowd as eyes darted back toward the hall. James stepped closer to Emily, his presence a steadying force. "We have to find out what's happening in there," he said, his expression firm as he motioned for her to follow. With the folder clutched tightly, she took a deep breath and moved toward the door. But another scream rang out, sharper this time, fragile, terrified. "Leo, stay here!" Emily shouted, her protective instinct flaring. He nodded vigorously, eyes wide as James ushered her through the door. The scene inside was already disarrayed. Chairs overturned, papers strewn about as if a storm had ripped through. Emily's breath caught as she spotted Douglas on the floor, his hands gripping the arms of someone, an elderly woman crumpled in distress. "Mrs. Halston!" she gasped, recognizing the town's former librarian, a cherished figure with stories woven into every corner of the community. "I can't breathe." "I can't," Mrs. Halston stammered, her face pale and drawn. Emily rushed forward, kneeling beside her. "It's okay. Just hold on. We're here. James, go for some water." As James dashed away, Emily laid a comforting hand on Mrs. Halston's arm, feeling the tremor of her fear. "You're going to be all right," she promised, her voice soft yet determined. But the woman's eyes were filled with panic, darting around the room. "That awful creature! It came at me right before the scream. It's still in here." "What are you talking about?" Douglas' face showed disbelief. He seemed to shake off the worry that mixed with anger. "This is ridiculous, Mrs. Halston. We can't let this fear take over." But Emily knew better. It always seemed to come down to fear. It latched onto people like vines, choking out clarity and hope. "We need to know what scared her," she pressed, glancing towards James as he rushed back with a glass of water. "Here," he said, handing it to the trembling woman, "just sip this. You're safe. We will find out what happened." Mrs. Halston took a long gulp, her hands shaking less as she began to collect her thoughts. "I saw it. A face hidden in the shadows, a man. He was watching us." That sent a shiver down Emily's spine. "A man? Are you sure?" She felt the folder shift in her hand. In that moment, its contents seemed to pulse with weight, something she sensed linked to this mystery, something about her father. "Mrs. Halston, do you remember anyone suspicious?" Emily asked, urgency creeping into her voice. The woman looked deeply into Emily's eyes, and for a fleeting moment, clarity replaced her fright. Yes. I saw someone leave right before the scream. Dark clothes. He seemed to be searching. What was he searching for?" Emily's heart raced as another wave of fear crashed the idea that whatever was unfolding was tied to her family. "I don't know," she murmured, her voice trailing off. "But there was something. I felt it, something that would change everything." Emily gripped the folder even tighter, her knuckles white. She had to know what was in it. She had to break this cycle of fear. "We have to go back outside. There's something I need to see," she declared, raising her eyes to the crowd. But before she could take a step, a loud crash reverberated through the hall, shattering the moment. Whispers of panic rose again, faces turning toward the darkened corner of the room. "Stay together!" James shouted, but Emily's instinct screamed for her to move. What truth lay ahead? What danger hidden beyond the next door? As they stood together, glued to the spot, echoes of Mrs. Halston's words rang in Emily's ears. Would she find the answers, or was something far worse waiting to be uncovered? Emily felt the tension tighten in the air as the crash sliced through the whispers. Her heart pounded, each beat echoing the uncertainty of what awaited them. The crowd shifted, the collective breath of dozens of people hanging heavy with fear and speculation. What was that? Douglas asked, his earlier bravado shrinking back. I don't know, but we have to find out, Emily replied, her voice firm despite the knot twisting in her stomach. She glanced to James, who looked just as determined, a flicker of something deeper haunting his eyes. They moved closer to the darkened corner, stepping cautiously over the debris that littered the floor. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and teasing as the dim light flickered. Pushing forward, her fingers tightened around the edges of the folder, feelings of dread mixing with anticipation. Another scream pierced the air. This time, it was different. It was filled not just with fear, but with raw, primal agony. Emily stopped in her tracks. We have to hurry. She darted forward, propelled by an urgency she couldn't explain. Just as they reached the corner, a figure stumbled into view, a young man, disheveled and out of breath, his eyes wide with terror. Help! He gasped, as he leaned heavily against the wall, his palms slick with sweat. There's something in there. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to find it. What did you find? James demanded, his voice steady and commanding against the chaos. It's not just a scream, the man choked out, breathing heavily. It's a warning. There's something hidden, something those people don't want us to uncover. Emily felt the hairs on her neck rise. What do you mean? Who are those people? I don't have time to explain, he pleaded, fear clinging to him in waves. But they're coming for me. If you don't leave now, you'll be next. Next for what? Douglas asked, skepticism mixed with anxiety. You think we're just going to let you run off without answers? James shot him a look that could silence the room. That's enough. He turned back to the young man. What's your name? Tyler. Tyler Green. He spat out, desperation bleeding through his words. Listen, I saw things that could tear this community apart. Emily's thoughts raced. Had the folder been right? Was there a connection to her father's past that was deeper and darker than she ever imagined? But the moment of clarity was shattered again. A loud bang echoed from the adjacent room, a door slamming shut, rattling the walls around them. Go! Emily shouted, instinct pushing her forward. We can't just wait. Where? James called back, glancing into the shadows looming around them. Back to Mrs. Halston. We need help. They turned, rushing back through the room, navigating the chairs and papers scattered as if a battle had taken place. Emily's mind spun with questions, her instincts clawing at her to uncover the truth, but what truth? Panic whipped around them as they approached the elderly librarian, her face etched with confusion. You should have left. You don't understand. Before she could finish, they all heard a deep, rumbling sound, echoing from the far end of the hall. What is that? Emily breathed, dread pooling in her stomach as they all turned toward the source. They weren't alone anymore. In that instant, Tyler abruptly blurted, You have to choose. Know the truth or be consumed by the fear. Emily felt the walls close in on her. What was she willing to sacrifice to pull the veil back on this nightmare? With a grunt, James took a step forward. We will fight whatever it is. We want to let fear win. But as more of the shadows shifted, revealing figures cloaked in darkness, Emily whispered to herself, What if the truths we find are worse than the fear? And in that uncertainty, with hearts racing and fear igniting a spark of courage within them, they felt the ground begin to quake, a portent of what was to come. The ground rumbled beneath their feet, sending tremors of fear racing through Emily's body. Shadows loomed closer now, creeping out of the corners of her mind as much as the dimly lit hallway. Emily's heart pounded in time with the shaking, each thud echoing the sense of urgency. Run! Tyler screamed, his voice slicing through the panic like a knife. Emily didn't need to be told twice. She bolted down the corridor, her friends hot on her heels. James was right beside her, his breathing steady yet filled with determination, while Douglas followed, his expression a mix of disbelief and fear. Behind them, the darkness stirred, haunting whispers curling around their ears like smoke in a fire. Where are we going? Douglas shouted, trying to catch his breath. Anywhere but here. Emily replied, spurred on by the urgency. With every step, she felt a new resolve, as if the dread morphing into adrenaline was igniting something within her. Mrs. Halston's office was their destination. It had always been a refuge of knowledge and safety. If they could get there, maybe they could figure things out. But the covers of books stacked against the shelves seemed to close in on them, shadowy figures ready to pull them into the abyss. They pushed through the door and slammed it shut, leaning against it, hearts hammering like thunder. The room was previously a sanctuary, but now it felt like a trap, the books and relics holding secrets more dangerous than they realized. What the hell was that? Douglas asked, his voice shaky as they all gulped in deep breaths, trying to steady themselves. James turned to Tyler. You said something was hidden? What did you see? Tyler stumbled forward, knocking over a stack of bound volumes. I saw things that shouldn't be. People making deals in darkness, their essay resistance, but it's fractured. Before he could finish, the door rattled violently. Emily's stomach dropped. They're coming, she whispered. Tension hung in the air like a noose. Emily locked eyes with James, who nodded, affirming her unspoken plan. They needed to draw a line. They needed to fight back together. Tyler began, but she held up a hand to stop him. No more hiding the truth. If you know more, you need to tell us everything. Now. Tyler sagged. There's no time left. They'll all come for you if you even think about unraveling what has been kept hidden. The door rattled harder, splintering at the edges. Emily's breath quickened. She could feel the darkness pressing in, suffocating, almost tangible. We can't be afraid anymore. Not if we want to protect our home, our families. We need to think, James said, the lines of determination etched sharply on his face. There's a reason why they're hiding whatever this is from us. Wisdom is hidden in archives, Tyler replied, eyes darting. But the knowledge is a burden. If you find it, you may not be able to unsee it. Suddenly, the door burst open. Figures spilled into the room, cloaked shadows, their faces obscured, intent on sowing despair. One figure stepped forward, voice laced with malice. You shouldn't have come here. Emily's heart raced with panic and defiance. We won't let you silence us, she shouted, stepping in front of Tyler, arms outstretched as if she could shield him from the oncoming storm. With every breath, she felt a fire stir inside her, a fierce need to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As she stood there, facing what they feared most, she realized that while she may not know the truths yet, she was ready to find them. And that determination might be enough to change everything. But then she caught a glimpse of their shadows stretching out, swirling around her, and she wondered, was she truly brave, or simply reckless? Before she could ponder her doubts, a voice behind the figure echoed, deeper, chilling, the time is up. The truth is here, but it comes at a cost. Emily's heart skipped a beat. What cost? Just how far would she and her friends go to unveil the buried truth? The room held its breath, tension crackling like static, palpable and charged. Emily stood at the front, feet planted, heart racing. Behind her, James clenched his fists, Douglas pressed his back against the wall, and Tyler trembled, his eyes wide. They shared a collective uncertainty, yet a spark ignited the air. It was fear, yes, but also a flicker of resilience. The cloaked figure's voice echoed ominously. The truth is here, but it comes at a cost. The thick shadows surrounding them seemed to lean in closer, whispering threats that pricked at Emily's skin like cold needles. But she squared her shoulders. What do you mean? She challenged, her voice steady despite the chaos raging within. You'll have to trade the innocence of your past for the harsh light of reality, the figure replied, stepping forward, revealing a face shadowed but familiar. Only then can you grasp what is truly hidden. Gasps filled the air. Emily searched for understanding, memories of her childhood flooding in, laughter intertwined with shadows. Her heart raced with dread. Was the innocence of her past truly lost? Could she confront the truth, even if it shattered everything she believed in? We're ready to face it, James declared, voice unwavering as he placed a protective arm in front of Emily. We need to know. Douglas took a step back, his bravado flickering. "You don't know what you're asking," he replied, desperation creeping into his voice. "This truth could destroy lives, our lives." Emily's heart swelled with compassion. She turned to face her father, eyes softening. "Dad, it could set us all free. We can't live in shadows anymore." His expression softened, tears welling in his eyes. But at what price, Em? There it was, the chasm between duty to family and the haunting echoes of truth no longer ignored. Voices from the shadows began to murmur. "Family? You've betrayed that trust." The figure stepped closer, darkness coiling at his feet. "You think standing for truth will protect you? You'll lose your family name, your legacy." A tremor of uncertainty washed over Emily. The very idea struck deep, but suddenly, she was filled with conviction. "That's the choice we have to make," she said, her voice unwavering, addressing the figure and the gathering shadows behind. "We'd rather stand on the ground of honesty than cower in fear." Others stirred, murmurs building around her. Douglas faltered, glancing from Emily to the nightmare unfolding before them. "Em, please." "No," she replied firmly, determination etched into her features. "It's time to end the cycle of lies. You have to choose to speak truth, not just for us, but for everyone." The figure glowered, then retreated slightly, as if caught off guard. "Your feel of defiance is amusing." "Defiance? No, it's hope." Emily stepped forward, her chest filled with fire. "I can accept the scars of the past if it means the community heals. But we have to do it together. Unearthing these truths shouldn't rip us apart." Suddenly, a voice rose from the crowd, young yet fierce. "Then let us hold each other up. We stand with Emily." It was Sarah, her face radiant with courage, igniting massive responses through the audience. "Together!" Others echoed, one after the other, building up a groundswell of unity that echoed through the hall. The shadows rippled, hesitating as the sense of rebellion surged against them. "This is no trivial matter," the cloaked figure warned, raising a hand. But the wave of solidarity surged forward, unyielding like a crashing tide. "We choose truth. We choose justice," Jane shouted, stepping beside Emily. "You can't keep lying to us." As the shadows writhed and thickened, Emily took a deep breath and finally hurled the manila folder onto a nearby table. "Then it's time for you to show us. What are you hiding?" The crowd shifted, anticipation tingling their skin, an electric thread binding them, silencing the fears that had echoed for too long. Holding on to each other, they stepped forward, defiant. The cloaked figure took a step back, layers of darkness peeling, revealing glimpses of the past. "Very well," he hissed, a chill creeping through the room. "The cost has been paid. You shall see the truth." With that declaration, shadows peeled away, revealing a flickering projection that filled the room with color, a slideshow of past lives connected to Douglas Harrington and his web of corporate deceit. Emily's eyes widened in horror as she witnessed poignant images of families struggling, sacrifices made at the altar of greed, allies turned adversaries, faces she recognized, memories etched into their souls. "Now you see," the figure finally spoke, his threat dissipating in the air, revealing holes that had once seemed impenetrable. Shocked gasps erupted. "You've been stealing not just from us but from our community," recalled voices filled with disbelief and outrage. "Our trust. Our lives." The wave of acceptance sifted through the crowd, a mixture of tears and anger, a realization settling in. They had suffered quietly for so long, lulled into complacent acceptance. Emily felt the warmth of her father beside her, a hand on her shoulder, the first ounce of connection she'd felt since this begun. And just like that, the pieces began to fit together, a truth now shining brightly against the darkness. As the crowd rallied, echoing their support, Emily turned to Douglas again, her eyes fierce but softening. "This can be our chance to rebuild. You taught me that family means standing together. Will you stand with us?" He looked at her, a moment of vulnerability grasping at his heart. "I'll try." And in that shared moment, with the reality of their past woven tightly, the beginnings of transformation unfurled, a transformation of not just individuals, but the entire community. As they turned together, hands reaching, Emily felt the cathartic rush of hope wash over her, sensing a new dawn emerging. Together they declared again, a chorus in unison, the darkness receding. It wasn't just about discovering the past, it was about shaping their future. In that instant she knew they would face the truths, fiercely and fully, and emerge, stronger than ever. Together, finally, they would write a new ending. Now, it's time for you to take action. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. If you enjoyed this journey, leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread the truth and inspire change together.